All right, so I'm going to discuss in sort of a webinar format real quickly about this tool called Intervals.icu. Intervals.icu is a free to use training analysis tool, I'll say. It's really useful for training planning, training monitoring, and it works seamlessly with Zwift. So that's why I'm going to talk about it for use with the fellowship. Um, so this is sort of the landing page if you've never been to the site before. You can sign up here, just fill in your email, set a password, create your username, set your FTP. You can use the FTP that Zwift gives you if you don't have another way of determining that. Your max, set your max heart rate. That'll be important for monitoring your heart rate zones. If you don't know that, you can just guess. It's not super critical. Uh, Input your weight, your time zone, and then sign up. I've already got an account, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. And when you log in for the first time, you'll land on this activities page. Right now, mine is populated, but if this is your first time logging in, you won't have anything filling this in. It'll probably say something like no activities available or something like that. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is populate this. You want to give intervals.icu some data. And to do that, you're going to come to settings. You're going to select connections, and then you are going to connect either Strava or Zwift. If you don't use Strava, you can just use Zwift itself. And then you select download activities, and you'll want to click this download old data button. It might sync automatically, but I think if you connect and click this download old data button, it'll start to populate. You can also do the same on Strava. If you've got your Zwift activities going to Strava, then you can just use Strava, but you'll want to connect Zwift anyways. So yeah, connect Zwift, connect Strava. I use a Coros watch to monitor my sleep and resting heart rate and things like that. So I've also connected to my Coros account. If you use an Aura ring or a Whoop strap or a Garmin watch or something like that, you can connect to your Garmin Connect to keep track of that sort of data as well. Um, it's not necessary. You can get a lot of the functionality out of this without it, but if you want to get into the weeds and track things like HRV and compare that to how you're performing during your workouts, by all means, I do it. Uh, you can too. You can also connect intervals.icu to some apps, or I guess maybe this links out. I haven't done any of these. There's all sorts of things that use intervals.icu data, and I don't know, does basically anything you could possibly want with it. I think intervals.icu does enough for me. I think this is already going into the weeds, but if you want to go even further, by all means. So I've gone back to the settings tab of the settings tab, and here you can update all your stats and things like that. I don't know how much any of it matters. And then you can come down here, you can set your FTP. The way that this works is um, you can just put in the FTP that you've been given. And then I think if you leave this blank, yeah, then it captures it for indoor riding. But if you know that you've got a different FTP for indoors versus outdoors, then you can put that here. Um, if you somehow know your anaerobic work capacity, you can put this here. Uh, Pmax, your maximal sprint power, you can put that here. Uh, the the website will analyze for your W prime and your Pmax, and it'll also estimate your FTP using a slightly different method than Zwift does. Um, Here we get down to your power zones. This is sort of used for charts inside of your activities. If I quickly go to an activity here, you can see this these bands are based off of what I've got set here. So sweet spot doesn't get a band, but it it calculates how much time you spent in sweet spot. Um, the default I think is a really good one. If you do want to change it to a different system, you can create your own power training zones, or you can use a preset. I think the preset is this Joe Friel bike. This is the standard one, I think. Um, and I think that one works pretty good. I don't think there's any real need to change it. Here you can set your heart rate, your max heart rate, and then this is a metric for um, basically it can track how quickly your heart rate comes down after a very hard effort. I think usually this is set to your threshold heart rate. So if you go over your threshold heart rate, it'll check how long it takes for it to come down. But that's details. Let's see. Yeah, this is heart rate settings. You can set these all up for all sorts of different things. If you're a triathlete, you can set up your running heart rate zones, your pace zones. Um, if you run with power, you can set up your running FTP. I don't run with power. I run on pace on flat or heart rate on trails. You can do swimming. I don't swim at all, really, so I can't, I don't, but I think it's similar to running in the way that it's measured. Um, what else on this settings page? Okay, so if we scroll down a little bit, you can, the next thing that's really of interest is to add seasons. So seasons would be, um, it could just be a whole year, or it could be like I did sort of a winter training block, and then I wanted to perform in the summer, so I started a new summer block of training, a bit long block of training, sort of ways to mark your progress through the years. So, for example, I'm going to probably take a little bit of time off at the end of this month, and so I'll say maybe I'll say I want the new season to start at the end. Oh, this is May 2027, 2026. July. I'll start a new season on August 1st. And this will let me compare season over season. I'll point that out again later. Uh, the next thing down here is wellness. Here you can tell it to prompt you to input your wellness information each day. So when you access the site, you'll come to this landing page and it'll automatically pop this up when you land on the page. So you can input your weight, your resting heart rate if you take it manually, the amount of sleep that you've got, and you can categorize your sleep quality. I've narrowed down the fields that I enter. You can, if you measure all this stuff, you can have it uh, ask to update. But I've really narrowed it down to ones that I feel are useful. Um, Things like tracking your mood and motivation are really good to sort of watch for burnout. Um, one day where you're low motivation or grumpy is not really a big deal. That stuff happens. But if you, by tracking it like this, if you come to this site regularly, you can start to notice like, oh, I've been grumpy or low motivated for 2 weeks. Like maybe I'm a little burnt out. Maybe I need some time off. And then as well, you can put in if you've got an injury of some kind. Um, so yeah, and then yeah, so that's what that question is here. Activity RPE and feel, I would turn this on to prompt as well. So after you've done an activity and you go to the page, it'll ask you how you felt. Like it'll ask you what was your RPE, and then also how did you feel? Like did your legs feel strong? Did you feel weak? Um, just sort of potentially useful information to look back on and say like, oh, I would if you have a lot of weekdays in a row, maybe you need a bit more rest. Or if you're always feeling strong, maybe you aren't working out hard enough during the week. Those sorts of things, sort of a subjective evaluation. The, yeah, let's see. The next thing, you can set up your email notifications. I've got them all on, but I don't think I need to do that. But anyway, so that's sort of the gist of the settings. So yeah, go to connections, connect to Zwift, connect to Strava, connect to your watch if you want to, or something like that. And then, with Zwift, when you connect to Zwift, you want to make sure this box is checked. This is upload planned workouts, and you can also check upload all workout types, mainly just so that if you have a workout that's set as a outdoor ride, but you meant to do it indoors, it'll already be uploaded to Zwift. Um, so yeah, that's sort of the gist of how to get connected there. Um, so now what? I'll do is I'll go to the activities page and we can look at this to start with. Here is just sort of a weekly calendar of what you've done, and it can provide some statistics to help you sort of uh, evaluate your week if you want to. Yeah, I think the important things that I look at in a week of training are going to be the total amount of time that I trained, um, the total amount of load, which is a metric that estimates how difficult your workouts have been. And then you can also look at your training zones, but I look specifically at these S1, S2, S3 chunks and try to just evaluate these the most. So S1 is your zones 1 and 2 combined. So your percentage of time in zone 1 power and zone 2 power added together. Your S2 is your total amount of time in zone 3 and zone 4. And then S3 is your total or fraction of time in zone 5, 6, and 7. And so what this does is it helps you evaluate like uh, you might have heard of the 80-20 rule where or 90-10 rule or something like that, where ideally 80% to 90% of your work should be zone 2 or below. And then um, above that, there's different reasons you'd want zone 2 or like this middle zone or higher zone to be different percentages. But sort of looking at this S1 in particular and trying to make sure that I don't have a number of weeks in a row where I am, like 60% in zone 1 and zone 2. Like this week, uh, I haven't done very much volume yet, and a lot of that volume was quite a hard race. So um, I've got a high percentage in this middle, but if you look back through the weeks, you'll see S1 90%, S1 85%, S1 80%, S1 73%. Like this might have been a kind of a hard week. It looks like I raced a few times. I did 3 races that week. But normally I'm going to be S1 around 80% or or so. Looks like I had a few weeks in a row that were were pretty hard. But yeah, typically I would like to do it a little bit easier. I guess this was the Sisu week, and then I think I was traveling for work, so I had a lot of time to race. So, but anyways, regardless of all that, yeah, it's just useful to monitor and look back and see how hard you've been working on your calendar page. Um, the next big tab that we've got is going to be perhaps the most useful tab for me, and that's going to be this fitness tab. And this fitness tab will show you it's a moving average of your training load, your daily training load. So this purple bar is my training load average for 7 days, and then this blue line is your training load averaged for 42 days. And your 42-day average, it's weighted to the more recent efforts, but 42-day average is what they call here your fitness. And then your 7-day average is what they call your fatigue. And they aren't classical fitness or fatigue, it's just what they've shorthand measured it, but they're also, it's kind of useful to think about it that way. Like the higher your fitness number, uh, the fitter you're going to be generally. And the higher this fatigue number is above your fitness number, the more tired you're going to be. Um, and if you subtract, or if you take fitness and you subtract your fatigue, you get form. And most of the time when you're building fitness, you want your form to be negative. Um, and that's because if your 7-day average is higher, then your you're going to be moving up your 42-day average. Um, However, what can get real lost is that like these numbers don't actually mean anything in the world. Like somebody with there's people out there that are twice as fast as me that could have this a fitness of 45, or there's people who are much slower than me that could have a fitness of 45. This is all relative to your individual self. Like these numbers don't mean anything uh, so much in general. Um, they're just sort of personal references. So as like a matter of training philosophy, you want to try to push your fitness number up to the highest number that you can sustain. You don't want to just try to achieve the highest fitness number. And I think it's useful to consider that this fitness number is is not your actual fitness. It's not actually how you're going to perform, so that you feel a little bit less precious about it. Like if you feel like you need this number to go up all the time, then you're not going to take rest days when you need to, or you might not take days off when you're sick because you're trying to keep this number high. And that sort of stuff leads to burnout or injury or prolonged illness or something like that. So you want to just sort of pay attention to this number, but don't give it too much weight. Like it is it's a useful metric, but it's not like we are not metrics. We're people. Like it's very common. Like here, if you look back to last year, I ran a long race. I did a taper. While you're doing the taper, you're losing quote unquote fitness, but really I'm recovering and I'm going to be able to perform better, even though is my quote fitness is lower. Anyways, so that's fitness and fatigue. Um, yeah, it's useful to pay attention to that. All these little bumps here are, these little dots are sort of power PBs. The purple ones are power related. The red ones are FTP changes as automatically calculated by the software. Um, yeah, let's see. What else do we got? So yeah, as suggested, as I said before, if you subtract your fatigue from your fitness, you get form, and then that gives us this chart here uh, below the fitness chart, and this is your form moving through time. Um, you'll notice here on the right-hand side that it says transition, fresh, gray zone, optimal, high risk, and these are sort of broad categories to say like if your form is in the blue zone, you're fresh. Like that's sort of what you want to target if you're going to race. So here in the past my form got into the blue fresh zone right before a race because I tapered for it. And then after the race I was in sort of a prolonged recovery from that, and then before I started building my fitness back up. Um, they'll have a gray zone here, which is trying to suggest that if you're in the gray zone, you are not carrying enough fatigue, basically. Um, and then there's an optimal zone, sort of, I guess it would probably be like your form is minus 10 or lower, negative 10 or lower. And that's what they're calling optimal in this. I would say that this this plot here is probably one of my biggest uh, pet peeves with this software. I would say that the optimal zone is actually quite aggressive. Um, if you, I am completely unable to run in this optimal zone for any prolonged amount of time without getting quite tired and sort of overcooking myself. Like I'll be able to do it for a short amount of time, intentionally trying to peak for a race, knowing that I'm going to have some recovery before that race comes up. But if I were to try to train in this green band all the time, I would I would get overcooked. And so um, what I've determined for myself, and this is sort of my first tip on this page, is that uh, I actually try to train in this gray zone and kind of try to train on the higher side of the gray zone as much as possible. Like if you look in the last 53 weeks, this last 365 days that are shown here, I've been in the gray zone quite a lot, but my fitness has grown quite a lot over that time. And then yeah, like I've gotten much fitter just existing sort of in this gray, quote unquote, gray zone for the last year. Um, and so sort of alongside that, there's this chart that you won't see on your uh, fitness page currently. It's this ACWR chart, and this is the first thing that I would recommend you add to to your chart. And this stands for acute to chronic workload ratio. And it is let's see, how do they define it? I, it is your fatigue divided by your fitness, rather than your fitness minus your fatigue. And I find that this chart works way better for me in my training. Um, I can this sort of level feels accurate to myself, what is sustainable for the long term. As you can see, I've been in this green band almost entirely for the last year, and it yeah, I feel great. Like I don't feel overcooked. I still feel excitement to go train, and um, yeah. So this is the first thing I would consider adding to this page. And to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to come down to the bottom of the page, click custom charts, and you're going to search for the chart. And you're going to type in ACWR, and you can find one. I think the one that I'm using is this one from Paul Werner. Um, I think all of these are sort of selected the same, but you just click on this and it'll add it to your table. You can see it added it here at the bottom. If you want to change the height of it, you can change the height of it. Um, if you want to change its position relative to the other ones, you can slide it up or slide it down. Um, if you wanted to overlay something onto this plot, you could as well. If you wanted to compare form here, you can do so. And if you want to display the form number here, you can display it at the right. So you can see that they kind of move opposite because form is frequently negative. But yeah, I I think this ACWR is great. And if you're brand new to working out frequently, you might open this up and see that you're in this high risk zone. And it can be tricky to sort of start from zero because everything you do adds a lot to that fitness page because you've got zero history basically, or it adds a lot to your fatigue. So your average fitness is low and your fatigue is high. But I would still sort of pay attention to that and try to bring that number down in the short term. Like you might feel that uh, you've got a lot of excitement currently and you want to keep working out, but it is important to sort of think about this in the long run and try to at least bring this number down. And it will come down by itself naturally, but if you've been riding on Zwift every single day or racing on Zwift every single day and you see that you're in this high risk zone, I would recommend starting to include some rest days or at least some like zone 1, zone 2 riding days into your structure. Um, but yeah, so this is sort of this this chart here is probably the most important one for me to include. The I base basically uh, this is how I evaluate my training. If I'm quite low here, then that might be fine, but that might be a good indication like, okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more rigorous and hit some more workouts. If I'm quite high, then uh, I at least have to be intentional about eating well and resting well and things like that to try to sustain this. But for the most part, if I'm in this green band, I know I'm getting faster and I'm unlikely to burn out. Your mileage might vary. You might be able to run in this optimal zone all the time and maybe you just recover well, or you're young and therefore recover well. And but yeah, for me, that doesn't work. So yeah, I would say add this ACWR plot to your to your page and sort of watch this, or at least pay attention to it. Other things I've got added here are just sort of nice to knows for me. I've added some sleep tracking so that I can sort of be aware of what the trends are in my sleep patterns. If I see that I've got a lot of low sleep nights, then um, I need to dedicate some more attention to that, or I need to back off on training, or both. Um, just something to keep in mind. Here is this mood bar. I think it's actually like inverted scale. So normally I feel pretty good. Gives me a mood of 2. But if I see too many of these like really bad moods in a row, something's up. Um, Here I've got my resting heart rate. A couple of years ago, I had a period of time where my heart was just behaving a little weird, and so I added this on to sort of track that. Like in 2025, I took quite a lot of time off training because of that. Um, and yeah, my resting heart rate got quite high, and I've since brought it back down. But just something to sort of watch for me. I think one thing to note is that heart rate is actually kind of interesting. If you get a lot of resting heart rates that are very low out of a sudden, that's not a good thing. You kind of want the trend to be slowly to getting lower. If you notice that your heart rate has sort of fallen off, that's a good indication of overtraining syndrome. Um, it could be something else, but I think that's what I've heard. And then here you can see I've got a bunch of high heart rates. And this pink line is my HRV. I've got high heart rates and low HRV. I was sick. You can see, like, it's kind of interesting to look at these and be like, oh yeah, I was sick then. Um, Here, this was right after I ran a 50K trail race. My resting heart rate was very elevated because I was basically sick from like my body had gone through so much trauma. So I think it's useful to track your resting heart rate if you've got that ability. This this chart here is FTP and EFTP, just sort of tracking that over time. I don't know if this is all that useful really. Like I'm just trying to get faster, but it can be nice to look back and be like, oh yeah, when I first started on Zwift, I was down here. Now I'm up here. Um, and then this chart is my exercise calories per day. This is useful for me to sort of just pay attention to my diet, make sure I'm not eating too much more than I need to. It's very, I'm definitely prone to being like, oh yeah, I exercised really hard. Uh, Let me just eat a whole bunch. And but if I look back on this calendar, basically uh, my average exercise calories per day is 600. Like that's not actually that many calories, so I shouldn't be gorging myself. Is basically that sort of reminder. Um, Here's another sort of FTP chart. This is tracking my weight. It gives me my weight per day as well as a weekly average. Um, yeah, I've I got a bunch of these FTP charts apparently, but mainly because I was trying to see if anybody's got a good one. But for that, you can just do as before. You can search for a chart, or you can add your own. Um, yeah, all sorts of all sorts of things that you can add in. Yeah, there. If you want a chart, search it up. Um, and then yeah, you can also create your own chart from scratch, or you can edit one. Like if I want these lines to be different, I can come here and say like I want that line to be thickness 2 instead, and it makes this red line fatter. You can set it to be dots or lines or bars. Um, Sort of you can make this look however you want basically. And then I think there's also some ability to do some programming in here as well. But I don't know I don't know too much about that, but there is some ability to sort of customize all of these things. Um, yeah. Anyways, this is this is sort of where I'm at with it. I think these are all these are all things that I found that are nice to have, but this ACWR is the big one. Add that. I would say add that in uh, as soon as you can, and just sort of see where you're at. Okay, I think that's it for the fitness tab. Um, the next tab is the power tab. And this is where that season that we edited earlier comes into play. Um, you can compare yourself this season versus last season uh, on your power chart. So here we've got my power curve, and it goes on a sort of a logarithmic time scale, and um, you can tell it which power curves you want to show. Like, do you want to see the last 42 days? Um, do you want to see all time, this season, last season? Um, these are all old seasons that I have. You can also have it show indoor versus outdoor um, if you have way different strengths there. Um, you can show your estimated FTP. You can show it in watts or in watts per kilogram. Um, yeah, that's yeah, that, that's the bulk of it, really. Pretty straightforward. Play around with that. I'm trying to think of anything else that could be useful. You can also edit your seasons here on this page. Um, and if you want to know what your best efforts are, all of these are specifiable. So if you want to say like, what's my best 1 second power, you type in 1S and it'll add that to the list. Um, it estimates your VO2 max, your time to exhaustion at your estimated FTP, your compound score. This is, I think, useful if you're building a cycling team, but for most people, not really useful. But if you want to try to build up your compound score, go ahead. You can look up the stats and sort of train for that. Down here is my power profile. This is basically like the comparison piece. Like if you want to compare with others, uh, you can here, and it'll put a little dot based off of your watts or watt per kilo, and to show how you stack up on all these different all these different time durations, and it'll show what percentile you are. Um, this is saying in the last 42 days that my average training load is 238, which is 32nd percentile. So I maintain a relatively low training load for people who use this website. Um, but yeah, you can show yourself in watts if you want to. If you're a big person and you want to pad your ego, or you can do watts per kilo. And then there's all these charts that show sort of how you've moved. But I think it's a useful way to sort of see in another way. Like this orange bar is where I was last season. So sort of between January and May, these were my bests. And between May and now, mid-July, these are my bests. So I've moved up quite a bit in the last couple months. Um, yeah, I think the biggest thing use in this page is that I will come to this page if I know that the race that I'm going to do on Zwift has a approximately 5 minute hill. I will come see what my 5 minute best power is. So I sort of know like, okay, if I've got to ride up this hill for 5 minutes, I don't want to hit it at 380. I want to like 370 is the best I've done. So sort of just to estimate that way. Okay, so next things. The next page is pace, which is useful for running. You can sort of see your critical speed. This behaves similar to the power page for running and swimming. You can set your pace curves and things like that, working grade adjusted pace. Um, Another thing you can look at is your totals. And this is sort of your total time for the time period that you've been in combined zones, sort of what sort of training effect you've got. Currently, I've got this for all set up for running, but if I want to include some biking instead, I can do that, and it'll show you how many activities you've done, how many weeks there are in this period, um, what sort of distance you've covered, your duration. It can be kind of nice to look back and see this summary. Um, yeah, it'll show you how far you've climbed, and then yeah, it also shows you your pace zones, and then it also evaluates based off of your power zones what sort of training style you've been, whether you've been polarized, pyramidal, training for threshold, or high intensity interval training, or training for base. And it looks like for this year overall, I've been training more or less pyramidal. But that's sort of just that's maybe useful to somebody, but um, again, you can also people have totals tables, but I don't look at these too much. But yeah, you can sort of compare yourself over the months. Like I slept a lot more in February than I did in July. My max power was estimated at 759 watts in January and is 1133 now. My FTP, how your FTP has changed, your watt per kilo, how your weight. Um, you can find all sorts of things. So yeah, go ahead, scroll through what people have built. I think a lot of smart people have built a lot of tools for these things, and uh, yeah, you can look in there. Here you can compare activities. Like this here, I've compared year over year, um, but I don't use this tab hardly at all. I've tried to mess around with it a little bit, but uh, yeah, I just haven't found it too many uses. But this might be useful for you if you just want to be like, okay, I this year is going better than last year or something like that. Here you can directly compare activities. So there's a way that you can, um, on the activity page, you can add an activity to this and sort of if you've got like a route that you like to ride or is that it's sort of like a test for you. There's a route near my home that I like to run a lot and I've compared year over year progress running that route or where I'll say like, oh, this year I ran the same speed on that route, but my heart rate was 20 beats per minute lower, or something like that. So you can sort of compare that way. Um, yeah, and then we're back to settings. So that's sort of a summary of all the big tabs here. But the next thing I'll do is I'll go into a specific activity and we can look at the things to look at in there. Um, Here you can add notes to your activity. You get all your statistics up top. Um, I've added in a raw heart rate thing because I didn't actually know what my heart rate was. So I added in a raw heart rate chart to get that. There's a few times where I did an activity and my heart rate exceeded what I thought was my max, which was 182, and I hit 187 and that didn't show up. So I've started to include this because the software thinks that you can't exceed your max. Um, but yeah, so yeah, the activity page. What to talk about here? I have edited the power. This is how I've chosen to display it. I think it works pretty good. I've got a thin line for 3-second power, and I've got a moving average of my 3-second power that's a bit fatter. And I think this is more useful rather than just a ton of scattery data. I can see sort of the general trend, uh, more or less a 15-second average of of my power over the course of the ride. Um, this is sort of the the main plot here. The Here we've got heart rate. I've got this is actually a custom chart as well to add that in. Like before, you come down here and you click on charts, and then you add a chart. And this one is called, I think this one's a good one. It's called HR Zones by Pedalea con Guillermo. Um, then here I've got 30-second power. I made this one myself. I just sort of wanted to see what that would look like. I don't. It's not super useful, but it is a little bit interesting to see what my 30-second power average is over the course of the ride. Here's that raw heart rate. This just says what my heart rate monitor says without any colors or interpretation. Power, 30-second power again. Looks like I got a duplicate chart. Cadence as well. And then this last one is VAM, which is like my ascent speed. This is a this is one that's created as well, and I think this one's good because it'll tell you what the gradient is over the course, as well as what your ascent rate is. So um, your VAM is your average. Like if you were to continue climbing at that speed, how many meters would you climb in an hour? Um, so yeah, that's nice to look at, I think. Um, yeah. So one thing that you can do with um, the activities page is to evaluate splits. So let's go back to this page here. This is a different activity. You can see here, this is the altitude profile. We can see where there's 2 climbs. If I want to know sort of how long it took me to climb this climb, which is the Aqueduct KOM reverse, it grabs uh, the intervals from Strava, I believe, if you're connected via Strava. Um, I can see how long it took me to approximately to climb it. Uh, if you highlight, if this is on PC, not on uh, mobile, but if you highlight, you can zoom in, and that'll help you see sort of when you want to end it. And then you just click to zoom back out. Let's see, what else do we have here? So here's another climb. It'll automatically try to find intervals for you, but it can sometimes be bad at it. So it's useful to come in, you can drag it. If you want to add another one, you can scroll to where you want and come down here and say add interval, or press A. Um, if you want to do it for the segment, like here the selected segment was Caspat, so I created one for the whole segment. Um, if you want to remove all the intervals, you can do that as well. Just clear it, and then I think this is often a good way to go if you're evaluating a race, um, is to remove all the intervals and then just come in here and press A and select this way. You just create them and drag them out, and it'll tell you sort of the main stats in between. These stats here at the top are actually from this fields category. These are the ones that I choose to use. I have elapsed time, how long that interval was, my average power for it, my average heart rate for it, the average zone, that sort of intensity, like power divided by my FTP, how far I went, average watt per kilo, and my average speed, just so that I have some quick data there. Yeah, what else? You can look at your power curve for that activity. You can see how much time during that activity you were in each of your power zones, and then see it as a histogram here as well. They also have a way to correlate your power to see how much your heart rate decouples, but uh, I don't really use this at all, but it's interesting that that'll give you some idea of how much my heart rate increased as I fatigued relative for the same power relatively. Um, You can compare this ride stats to your all-time stats. Yeah, for this one, I set a 15-second PB of 1,000 watts. You can add in any other duration you would want. Um, yeah, let's see. This compares your, not actually sure. Let's see, percent of heart rate reserve. So it's like how close are you to my max heart rate, and then how close am I to my FTP? Comparing those, I guess. Um, you can see the stats about your heart rate. You can see stats about the route. Um, you can see sort of like the raw data of your intervals here. But I'd say the main things that I look at for cycling are this timeline and then my power chart. You can also you can show the map at the same time. If you're like not sure where on the course you were, you can look at that. Um, Maybe a little bit less useful on Zwift because it's like I don't know where this is on Zwift, but if you're riding outdoors and you're like, oh, I know where this road is, like let me find that and create a segment or create an interval there. You can do that. Um, yeah, so that's analyzing activities. There's quite a bit more you can really do here. You can again, there's all sorts of charts. You can track your W prime balance. You can track if you have uh, electronic gears, you can show that if you go for a ride outside with your Di2 shifting and your cycling computer records it. You can keep track of that. If you've got a way to measure your core temp, yeah, all sorts of cool things. But I think, uh, yeah, the mainly power, uh, power, heart rate, and maybe and cadence are maybe another useful one to track, and then everything else is just bonus. Um, yeah. All right. The last thing I want to talk about with Intervals.icu, and this is going to be probably potentially quite useful for a lot of you, is the ability to uh, have it set up workouts in Zwift. So currently, the workouts that Zwift has provided they can be okay, but I don't know. They just like I started training with Trainer Road, and the Trainer Road workouts are structured just so differently. I find that a lot of the Zwift workouts are either brutally hard or they're weird and sort of mixed intensities and they're just not very specific, and maybe that is useful. I am not an exercise physiologist, but it seems that as far as I've learned, you tend to want to try to train one energy system primarily at a time. In training, racing you use all of them, but uh, in training you want to sort of just focus on one. And there's a lot of Zwift workouts that don't do that. So uh, what we've got here is the ability to add our own workouts into Zwift. And so I'll show you how to do that. All right, so if you click on any of these calendar days, it gives you a number of options. You can input your wellness data, you can add a ride, you can do a manual entry, you can add in weight training, other workouts. Uh, you can scroll ahead on your calendar and say like, here's an A race, a B race, a C race. You can add notes to your calendar. You can say you took a holiday or you were sick if you want to look back and be like, why didn't I train this day? If you're injured, you can add a note for a season or start a season. Um, you can search for races or events apparently. Uh, that's cool. Okay, but yeah, so there's all sorts of things that you can do to add to your calendar. Um, what I'm so yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that you can do on your calendar here. But the main one is for Zwift is you can add workouts and you can plan your training ahead of time. So in order to do this, what we're going to do is um, the step one is going to be to show your workout library by clicking this book up here at the top. Then what you're going to do is you can see here, I've got all these 4 libraries. Um, you're going to add those to your workout library. In order to do that, you're going to come here to the bottom, search for plan, and under ride, you're going to type fellowship if with workout folder selected. And then if you click this button here, the 3 dots, say add to library for these 4 folders, now you'll have however many workouts set up for use in Zwift that I've created. So uh, go ahead, add these to your library, and then when you want to do a workout, you can click on that day and you can say workout from library. It'll bring you to your library. And if you want to do a Z2 workout, you can find one. For example, this is a 1 hour and 15-minute long Z2 workout. It says, I think I have a type. Oh, I think there was a time where I was doing the amount of training load per hour when I was writing these. So the amount of training load is here, 48. Um, so if your fitness is 37 and you do this 48 load, this is going to be above your fitness level. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just going to be adding to your fitness, and it may feel hard. However, you just select the workout, and then it's added to your calendar. So I can do that for, say I wanted to do this ride today. I wanted to, tomorrow I wanted to do a VO2 max workout. I can select that if I want to do, and then let's say on Sunday I want to do another Z2 workout, let's say an hour and a half. I can add all these to my calendar. And so, but what's nice is that now that I've added this to my calendar for today, if I come into Zwift, I've got that workout is programmed here in Zwift. It's already uploaded. Uh, and then I can start my ride and it'll work on, uh, it'll do it'll do the erg mode and everything automatically. Um, let's say I wanted to, if I change my mind, I don't want to do this one, I can delete it from my calendar. I can say workout from library. Let's say instead I do want to do a VO2 max workout. I'm not actually sure how long it takes to upload, but it seems like it's pretty quick. Let's see, more options. Oh, here we go. It's right here in my For You page. And it's got all of the ones I've added so far. This one is added by Trainer Road, an app that I've been using to train. But this one is, let's see, VO2 1 hour 74. If I look back at my calendar, VO2 1 hour 74, that's the one. I select it, I can say start my ride, and it automatically adjusts the power levels to whatever your FTP is. So um, yeah, this is a really cool tool um, that you can use. Anybody from the fellowship has access to all of these workouts. Um, you can also, other people have made workouts. If you search in like the workout, you can find like actual workout plans, structured plans, but I don't vouch for any of these, but they're potentially fine. But I think for me, it just made sense to have a folder of workouts. And so like this person's got a bunch of ones that they've maybe taken from a training company. Uh, you can grab these, you can add this to your library, and you can add all of these. They will also work just the same way, but uh, this is sort of a curated list that I've made for use for the fellowship if you so choose. If you do any of these workouts, I feel like they are very likely to be high quality. The only thing to pay attention to, and this is another strength of this of this website is if you come up here to options and you select, sorry, here it is, I couldn't read. If you add your fitness chart, it'll add in this plot. Um, if you remember, this is that from our fitness page, and it'll include the workouts that I've added in. So say I delete this, you'll notice this chart on the right changes and adapts based off of my planned workouts in the future as well. So um, the next couple days will affect my fitness, and I can see how that it manifests. Unfortunately, in the free version of this website, you cannot view that ACWR chart. So you kind of just have to work off of the form. Like I said, if you want to operate in this gray zone, I think that's kind of a good place to be. This allows you to add workouts to the future, um, and just see how your plans will affect you. Just and you can just keep adding them and keep adding them. I'm not doing this with any sort of idea, but um, yeah, you can just see sort of how this affects you. If you do decide to pay for this website, it's actually very cheap. It is $12 every 12 US dollars every 3 months, which is essentially $1 a week. Um, and that allows you to access this page, which is Plan Builder. And so that on this one, you can add custom charts to it. So um, if I want to look at the week ahead and add my workouts here, let's see if I can if I can overcook myself here. Just doing way too much VO2 max, potentially. Actually, that one didn't do too much. It was a short workout. If I do 1 hour and 15-minute VO2 max workout, it's going to push me up pretty high there. Anyways, so this is a paid feature of this website, but it's quite useful. And for $1 a week, I think it's a good value added. I signed up to support them, I think, before they even introduced this, just because I use this website so much. But yeah, you can become a supporter. Yeah, 12 US dollars every 3 months. Not bad. Um, yeah, so um, yeah, this is how I use Intervals.icu to train on Zwift. One last little thing about putting these workouts in from the library. If you say you want to do this threshold workout, you don't have to do it exactly as I've specified. You can click this edit button, and if you come in here, it's actually a sort of text editor, um, and it will you can edit it. So say you only want to do two of these. Say you only have you have less than an hour. Maybe you only want to do two of these intervals. You can just change the number from 2 to 3. It's a bit of a specific format for how to write this. I think it's a little bit too involved to type this out, but you can probably start to infer it if you go back and you look through these. But if these don't quite work out for you, or they're just not quite what you're looking for, you can always add intervals to some. You can make the workouts longer or shorter. You can make them harder or easier. You can kind of do whatever you want with them. Yeah, feel free to make any edits. So yeah, that's basically all I've got about this, how to use intervals.icu for training in Zwift. Something that I'd like to do for the future is to sort of talk about training philosophy or how to get faster on the bike for Zwift riding. But for now, I'll just give you the information about how to use this tool. And if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on Discord or uh, or wherever you find me. But yeah, I think that's all I've got. So I hope this is helpful, and we'll talk to you later.